Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Jenny's always the leader of the pack for Shabbat Shalom. Our rabbinic fellowship was created in 1996 when Rolly and Marcelo decided to honor the legacy of their teacher, Rabbi Marshall T. Meyer. It has blossomed into a group of 34 rabbis and rabbinic fellows, and we have, over these last 29 years, it's actually Marshall's yard site this coming week. We have a WhatsApp group for all of us, and this Wednesday it was buzzing with messages with concern for our fellows in Southern California. There are 4 of them there: Rabbi Dara Frimmer, Rabbi Aaron Levin, Rabbi Sharon Brous, and Rabbi Joshua Levine Grader. Rabbi Joshua Levine Grader, who was our 3rd BJ Fellow, lives in Pasadena, and wrote that he and his wife Francie had evacuated their home and didn't know whether it was still standing. He did share a picture of his shul, the Pasadena Jewish Center, which had been consumed by flames. Josh had been the rabbi there for many years. He's now the head of an organization for the homeless, of which, of course, will have enormous need in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. But they still don't have a rabbi at the Pasadena Jewish Center, and so in many ways, he's still the de facto rabbi. He updated us later in the day. His house had burned down. He shared a handful of pictures. The first was of a room. I've actually been to his home there, so I had some sense of the scene. The first was of a room that was completely burnt, and the next picture contained a book rescued from that very room that had been unscathed. The book was Eish Kodesh, Sacred Fire, Torah from the Years of Fury, 1939 to 1942, by Rabbi Kalinimus Kalmish Shapiro. Rabbi Shapiro was the rabbi of the Warsaw Ghetto, and the book contains teachings on the Parashat from those years. A number of years ago, I taught my class on that book. On the front cover of the book is a blazing fire. In the next picture he sent, if you remember that abstract picture of Obama during his election campaign, red, white, and blue, it had like this abstract thing, and on the bottom it said, hope. The poster was singed and torn in various places, but somehow it remained intact. I know we are all holding close not only Joshua and Francie and their kids, but all those who have lost their homes in LA and are in this in-between space, the before the fire and not knowing what will come next. The community of the Pasadena Jewish Center is davening in a private school this morning, and Joshua was asked to give the Devar Torah. When he reached out to the WhatsApp list to say that he was asked, and if people could share some Torah just so he could get a little chizuk, a little help, it was bombarded with beautiful, beautiful Torah from so many of the fellows from all over the country, all over the world, which was deeply, deeply moving. So I'd like to dedicate this Devar Torah to him and all those in the in-between. It is easy to find the end of this week's parasha. Vayehi is the last parasha of the book of Bereshit. There is always a large break in the Torah school between the books. We'll probably see it when the Torah is lifted later. The same cannot be said for the beginning of Parashat Vayehi. It is what the tradition is called stuma, blocked or closed. Typically, there are at least 9 spaces between one parasha and the next. Not often a parasha begins on the next line or with a new paragraph. Not so for Vayehi. It is the only parasha in the entirety of the Torah that begins without one space. Commentators, of course, treat this technical issue and endow it with deeply spiritual meaning. Many commentators begin with a question in their commentary, Lama parasha zo stuma? Why is this parasha closed, with no real break in the Torah between the last parasha and this one? The Ostrovester Rebbe, who is Rabbi Meir Yechiel, who lived from 1852 to 1928, answers as follows. It is because this entire parasha is on the borderline between past and the future. Here the Jews are in limbo, far away from the beginnings of their people and far from their future redemption as well. There were thus no signs to indicate to them where they were going, and the uncertainty is reflected in the absence of a real break in the seal between the two weekly parashot, Vayigash and Vayehi, Parshiot. One of the interesting aspects of this teaching is that the existential state of uncertainty and in-betweenness that the Jewish people are living in expresses itself in being blocked or closed. Often in the places when we feel most unclear, unmoored, and unanchored, it makes us feel more closed off, more stuck. The vulnerability of not knowing where we are going causes us sometimes to shut down, just like the parasha is. In fact, Rashi teaches that this parasha is stuma, is closed, because it tells of the death of Yaakov. When he departed this world, he says, the hearts and eyes of Israel were closed. Their eyes became dim and their hearts were troubled. Chizkuni elaborates on this idea, saying that the death of Yaakov causes them to be closed, stuma, blocked from their spiritual mission. And in being closed off to their mission, they became more and more enculturated to and dependent on Mitzrayim. They lost their direction. When Yaakov died, slavery started very, very slowly, but no one noticed because they had been closed off to their mission. The Midrash Bereshit Rabbah offers another interpretation of the parasha being stuma, being closed. When Yaakov gathered his sons around him to speak to them before he died, he wished to reveal the date of the end of days when the exile would finally end. But the vision was stuma, closed, or concealed from him. It says the Shekhinah left him. So in this instant, it wasn't actually the people of Israel who became closed off, but Yaakov himself. Rabbi Bunim of Peshicha explains, I can never say his name, Peshicha explains Yaakov wanted his sons to know when the Mashiach would come so that it would be easier for them to bear the burden of the exile. But the heavens declared that he was not to make it easier for them. We are reminded in this powerful teaching that when parents or elders of a community want to do whatever they can to alleviate the suffering of their children or their next generation, they do everything in their power to make it stop, because it's very painful to watch your children or the next generation suffer. They want to make the in-between, the limbo time, go away, and they want to give an assurance that famous phrase, Gam ze ya'avor, this too shall pass, will come very quickly, or at least we will know when the end will come. But we also hear in Rabbi Bunim the understanding that even the heavenly guidance, that people must go through what they need to go through. Even our parents, our teachers, our elders can't solve or control the uncertainties that lie ahead for us. It's an amazing amount of Torah wisdom from an absence of space in the Torah scroll. Given the chance To make meaning in a moment of great transition in the Torah, the rabbis lean into the intensity of the moment. They recognize the grief, the fear, the uncertainty. They hone in on the sense of loss in the transition. They articulate the risks of being closed down and caution against being led astray from our core mission. In the midst of all that is closed, all that is stuma about this parasha, the opening lines assert, Vayehi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim shva esrei shana. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. For a parasha focused on his death, the Torah affirms Yaakov's life in Mitzrayim for nearly 2 decades. Commentators focus in on the first word of the parasha, Vayehi. He lived. After all, the Torah could have said he was settled or he resided, but they focus in on the fact that it says Vayehi. He lived. Hizkuni writes, all the years of Yaakov until he settled in Egypt could not truly be described as chayim, life, seeing that they were all clouded by different kinds of anguish. And we know that to be true, of course, with the life of Yaakov, which was very, very difficult with his brother, with his daughter Dinah, with Shimon and Levi, all the drama that he had. And they said he never really lived a full life until this very moment. It was only during his last 17 years in Mitzrayim that his mind was at rest and not beset, by serious worries of one kind or another. Finally, Yaakov has been reunited with his son Yosef, and this Torah says his ruach, his spirit, returned to him. His family is thriving in Mitzrayim under Yosef's leadership and protection. Finally, Yaakov can live a little and not worry so much. But it is not merely the reunification of his family and their prosperity that allows Yaakov to live. How could it be said that Yaakov truly lived? After all, he was in Mitzrayim, the place of exile. The Sfat Emet offers, I think, a profoundly beautiful teaching. He says, you can even live in the land of Egypt as long as you are committed to the truth. As it says, Titen emet leYaakov, give truth unto Jacob. Scripture could have said Jacob was in the land of Egypt. It wanted to teach that he was truly alive, even in Egypt. Chaim, life, is defined as being attached to the root and source from which the life force ever flows. Scripture praises the actions of Yaakov, who lived in Egypt for 17 years and remained attached to life. All the defilements of Egypt couldn't stand up against holiness. There is true life to be experienced, even in the in-between, even in the uncertainty. Yaakov teaches us that in this parasha before he dies. One of the greatest risks of being in limbo, of being on the borderline between past and future, is the risk of nihilism, of believing there is nothing to be done and nothing matters. I just recently read an essay called Yeah, I'm a Hard Pass on Nihilism by Charlotte Clymer. Thank you, Dahlia Lithwick. She writes, nihilism is the view that nothing can be done in the moment to better our world, to help the most vulnerable around us, to make, she says, a damn effort, especially when you have the privilege to do so, where others don't. Nihilism pretends to be clarity, but really it's just a particularly pathetic laziness powered by narcissism. And that's what I love, that in all the closeness, all that is closed and blocked of this parasha, all the grief and the uncertainty, life is to be lived as long as we remain honest and dedicated to the truth in the midst of a universe of mendacity. And we must remain connected, truly connected to each other. When Yaakov and Yosef reunited, Yaakov's spirit was revived. I saw a post yesterday that read, Los Angeles, the love in the air is thicker than the smoke. Our community, family, and relationships remind us of our life force, our loving and our giving, our commitment to act for and with one another. And underneath all of that is the incredible gift of life, the life force, which comes from the Holy One, the very breath that allows us to live, that is powering us right here, right now. It is our responsibility to not squander that precious gift. Yes, there are fires burning right now, literal and figurative fires. Next week, there will be a new administration leading our country, and what lies ahead is very unclear. All the paths we imagine for peace for Israel and the Palestinians and Israel's neighbors seem very far in the distance. There is so much pain and vulnerability, violence and fear. Oh, if only someone could reveal the end of days, it would make this time so much easier to bear. My dear community, we do not have that luxury. The heavens have not declared when this period will end. But we will live in it, truly live in it. We will not shut down. We will remain open. We will find our life force. We will hold each other close. We will insist on telling the truth and pursuing the truth. Even though our hearts and souls may be singed, some things can never fully be burned. Just like that book and sign in Joshua's home. There will be Torah even in the fire, and hope will be everlasting. It is up to us to make that true. Can you hear that sound? So may it be.